Jake stood under the twin moons of Elenthra, the alien sky glowing in shades of blue and silver. He held something in his hand, a ring, simple but warm with energy. His heart beat fast as he looked at Liari, the alien girl who had saved him, more times than he could count. She was tall, elegant, and her skin shimmered like soft starlight. Her long silver hair moved gently in the wind, and her eyes, deep violet, watched him with calm and curiosity. "Liari," Jake said, his voice shaking slightly. "I don't know what love means on your world, but on Earth, it means forever." She tilted her head, listening, her glowing eyes focused. Jake dropped to one knee on the soft crystal sand, holding the ring up. "Will you marry me?" For a moment, everything was silent. Even the wind seemed to stop, the twin moons holding their breath. Liari stared at him like she didn't understand. But then something in her face changed. She stepped back, her glow pulsing brighter, faster, like alarm. You wish to bond with me?" she said slowly. Jake smiled nervously. "Yeah, that's what we call it. Bonding, marrying, joining hearts." Liari took another step back, then whispered, "Jake, you don't know what you've just said." Before he could speak, she turned toward the dark trees nearby and raised her hand. She spoke a word in her alien language, a soft, musical sound, and the shadows answered. From the forest, 3 other alien women stepped out, their beauty both breathtaking and strange. Each of them had glowing skin, sharp eyes, and long, flowing hair. They were not copies of Liari, but something in their faces showed they were blood sisters, Liari said, her voice trembling. "He has made the proposal." The tallest sister, with golden tattoos on her arms, stepped forward. "Does he know what that means?" The second sister, with glowing blue eyes, added, "Did he say the vow with knowledge?" The third one, who smiled but looked dangerous, said, "Or is he just a brave fool?" Jake stood up slowly, confused. "I don't understand. What's going on?" Liari turned to him, sadness in her eyes. "Jake, on Elenthra, when you proposed to one royal daughter, you proposed to all." He blinked. "All? You mean?" She nodded. "Me and my 3 sisters, Tirena, Velsha, and Amari." Tirena, the tall one, crossed her arms. "We are bound by soul, not by choice." Velsha, the quiet one, whispered, "Our bond is sacred and must be shared." Amari, the playful one, walked around Jake in a circle. "If you want one of us, you must survive all of us." Jake laughed nervously, thinking it was a joke, but then the ground beneath them began to rumble. The sand cracked and a low hum came from the earth. Liari grabbed his hand, her face serious. "You have awakened the ancient bond. Now the trial begins." "Trial?" Jake asked, his heart racing. "Yes," Velsha said. "You must pass 3 tests, 1 from each of us." "If you pass," Tirena added, "you may have us all." "If you fail," Amari whispered. Now behind him, "You lose everything, including your life?" Jake looked at Liari, who touched his cheek gently. "I wanted to warn you, but you were so sure, so brave," she said softly. He swallowed hard. "I still am. I meant what I said." Suddenly, fire lit in the distance, the ground split slightly, and strange glowing creatures crawled out. Silent watchers of the trial, Tirena stepped forward, a blade of light appearing in her hand. "First trial, strength," she said. "You fight me at sunrise." Jake looked at her, then at Liari, then clenched his fists. "I don't know your customs, or your strength," he said, "but I know my heart, and it's already with you." Tirena narrowed her eyes. "We'll see if your heart can fight." Above them, the sky shifted, the twin moons moving apart slowly, as if the stars themselves were preparing for something powerful. The sisters vanished into the darkness one by one, leaving Jake and Liari alone again. She stepped close and whispered, "I love you too, Jake. I just hope love is enough." Jake looked at the ring in his hand, still glowing faintly. He had no idea what tomorrow would bring, but he was ready to fight for all of it. The sun of Elenthra rose slowly, casting golden light over the crystal sands. Jake stood alone in the wide arena, the ground beneath his boots glowing softly. All around him were alien spectators, strange beings with eyes like mirrors. Watching in silence, high above, on a floating platform, Liari and her sisters stood, their faces unreadable. Jake's heart pounded in his chest. He was not a soldier, not a trained fighter. He was just a man who had fallen in love with a woman from another world. But now he had to pass trials designed for warriors of legend. Tirina, the eldest sister, stepped down onto the sand. She wore armor made of glowing gold plates, her long hair tied back like a warrior's. In her hand, she held the same blade of light from the night before. Jake only had a staff. A simple weapon offered to him by the trial guardians. Tirina raised her blade and pointed it at him. "This is not a fight to the death," she said, "but it is a test of your will. If you yield too early, you are not worthy. If you attack without purpose, you are not wise. If you strike with hate, you fail." Jake nodded, gripping the staff tighter. "Understood." Liari's eyes searched his from the platform above, her lips trembling as if she wanted to say something. But she stayed silent. This was tradition. The trial began. Tirina came at him like a storm, fast and powerful, her movements sharp and perfect. Jake barely blocked the first strike, the light of her blade sparking against his staff. He stumbled back, but held firm, using both hands to absorb her next swing. She was testing his strength, his control, his spirit. He didn't try to strike her first. Instead, he defended, dodged, stayed calm. Every time he could have attacked her exposed side, he held back. The crowd murmured in surprise. They had expected aggression. After 10 minutes of hard sparring, Tirina stopped suddenly. She breathed heavily, her blade humming beside her. Jake stood tall, sweat dripping, shoulders sore, but still steady. "You fought like a shield, not a sword," Tirina said, almost impressed. Jake nodded, catching his breath. "I wasn't here to hurt you." She stared at him for a moment, then gave a short bow. "First trial." "Passed!" The crowd erupted in silent flashes of light. Elenthran applause. Jake looked up at Liari, who gave him the smallest smile, pride shining in her eyes. But the next sister was already stepping forward. Velsha, the second eldest, was quiet, calm, and mysterious. She wore robes made of stardust silk, and her eyes glowed silver blue. She said nothing as she raised her hands and created a portal behind her. "Come," she whispered, her voice like a breeze. "Your mind will be tested now." Jake followed her through the portal, and the world changed. They stood in a room, with no walls, only stars and mirrors floating all around them. Each mirror showed something: memories, fears, doubts, and lies. "This is the labyrinth of truth," Velsha said gently. "You must find your truth and walk through it without turning back. If you doubt Liari's love, you will get lost. If you doubt yourself, you will break." The mirrors whispered as Jake passed them. "You are not enough. She will leave you. You're just a human. You can still go home." Jake kept walking, his jaw tight, his hands shaking. One mirror showed Liari, walking away, her hand in another alien man's. Another showed Earth rejecting him for bonding with outsiders. He closed his eyes for a second, but then remembered her words. "I love you too, Jake. I just hope love is enough." He opened his eyes and shouted back at the mirror, "It is enough!" The mirror cracked and shattered into stars. Velsha appeared before him, her face calm, her voice soft. "You walked through fear and chose truth. She placed her hand on his head, and the world around them returned to the sands. The second trial passed. 2 sisters down, 1 left, Amari, the youngest, didn't step forward right away. Instead, she vanished into a cloud of purple light, giggling as she disappeared. "Where is she?" Jake asked, confused, looking around. Liari's face turned serious. "She does not give tests, Jake. She plays them." Suddenly, Jake was no longer on the arena floor. He was inside a strange maze made of glowing vines and illusions. Voices whispered, shadows danced, and laughter echoed from every direction. Amari's voice teased from nowhere. "Catch me, human, if you want your final trial!" Jake ran forward, his legs burning, calling her name. But the paths twisted, and memories flashed. Childhood, Earth, Liari's face. He was starting to lose what was real. Then he stopped, closed his eyes, and whispered, "I'm not here to chase. I'm here to love." And just like that, the maze melted away. Amari stood in front of him, smiling widely. "You didn't run like the others," she said, stepping close. "You stood still and spoke your truth." She touched his chest with one glowing finger. Third trial, passed. After passing the 3 trials, Jake stood quietly beneath the twin moons again. The crowd had vanished, the arena now silent, and the glowing ground faded to dim. But he wasn't calm. His heart beat fast, not from fear, but from something strange he couldn't explain. It felt like something was still unfinished. Liari met him at the edge of the arena, her eyes soft with pride. "You passed all 3 trials," she whispered. "Terina respects you, Amari accepts you, and Velsha." She paused, her voice tightening. "Velsha has seen something." Jake turned toward the tall tower where Velsha had returned after the trials. The middle sister, the seer, was not like the others. She didn't speak much, didn't laugh, didn't smile. But she watched everything, like the stars themselves whispered to her at night. "She wants to show you something," Liari said. "A vision." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Another test?" Liari shook her head. "No, a truth. One you need before the elders decide your fate." They walked together to the tower, and at the entrance Velsha stood waiting. She wore a dark robe that shimmered like the sky, her hands folded, her face still and unreadable, without a word. She turned and floated inside, her feet not touching the ground. Jake followed, the door closing behind him. Inside, the room was silent, filled with orbs of light floating gently in the air. Each orb glowed with a soft hum, showing moving images, memories, dreams, futures that hadn't happened yet. Velsha raised her hand, and one orb floated down in front of Jake. "This one is yours," she said quietly, her voice like a dream. "Touch it." Jake hesitated, then placed his hand on the orb. In an instant, everything around him vanished. He stood on Earth, but it wasn't his Earth. The buildings were broken, smoke filled the air, and alien banners waved from ruined towers. Human soldiers fought aliens in the streets, and above them all, a dark starship hovered, humming with power. Then he saw himself, older, tired and alone, standing beside the same ship, wearing the same alien symbol. He gasped, stepping back. "What is this?" Velsha's voice echoed in his head. "This is one future if you stay with Liari, if you bond with us. Earth may suffer." Jake shook his head. "No, I'd never let that happen." The scene changed again. Now he stood on Elenthra, but the planet was dark, broken. The crystals were dull, the twin moons shattered. Liari lay in a pool of light, crying out his name. Her sisters knelt beside her, lifeless. Jake cried out, "Stop it, please!" Velsha stepped from the shadows, sadness in her eyes. "This is another path, one where you try to save us, but your heart splits between duty and home." He fell to his knees, confused and shaken. "But I don't understand," he whispered. Why show me this? Velsha knelt beside him. Because your choice carries more than love. She touched. His head and the vision faded, the tower returning around them. Jake sat on the smooth floor, breathing hard, sweat on his skin. Velsha sat quietly, her hands folded again. You have a rare heart, she said softly. It feels deeply, but thinks clearly. Jake looked up. So what do I do? Choose Liari? Choose Earth? Walk away? Velsha shook her head. You must choose all or none. He stood slowly, the weight of her words pressing heavy on his chest. Then I'll protect both, he said firmly. I won't let either be destroyed. Velsha nodded, but there was sadness in her eyes. You say that now, she whispered. But soon the elders will ask you a question. That will test your soul. Jake left the tower in silence, stepping into the cool air. Liari was waiting, her expression full of worry. He didn't speak right away, just hugged her tightly, burying his face into her shoulder. She held him back, without asking, as if she already knew what he had seen. Later that night, under the glowing stars, the sisters sat together around him. Tirena sharpened her blade quietly. Amari played with glowing butterflies, and Velsha sat beside Liari, silent as always. Jake looked at each of them, different, beautiful, powerful, and yet somehow broken too. They weren't just alien women, they were a family, one he was. About to join forever, he finally spoke. What if I fail the elders? Liari touched his hand gently. Then we will walk with you into exile. Jake smiled a little. Then let's hope I give them a reason to say yes. Above them, the stars began to shift, forming strange patterns in the sky. The elders were coming, and their judgment would not be kind. The next morning, Jake woke up inside a glowing chamber made of soft crystal walls. He thought he was alone, but laughter echoed above him. Light flickered across the room, bending like water, and then Amari dropped from the ceiling. Rise and shine, future bondmate, she said playfully, landing in front of him on bare feet. Her long violet hair flowed freely, and her glowing eyes sparkled with mischief. Jake blinked, still waking up. Amari, what are you doing in here? She smiled wide. Velsha told you the truth, but not all of it. Jake stood, stretching his arms, confused. Another vision? He asked. Amari shook her head. Not a vision, silly, she said. A secret. Before he could ask more, Amari snapped her fingers. The crystal walls around them rippled like water and vanished. Suddenly, Jake stood in a forest of glowing trees, the air thick with purple mist. Strange whispers passed through the leaves, and the sky above had only one moon, not two. Where are we? Jake asked carefully, looking around. Amari twirled, her long dress made of woven starlight spinning with her. This is the hidden side of Elenthra, she said. The part they never show outsiders. As they walked deeper into the glowing forest, Jake noticed ancient symbols carved into the trees. They glowed faintly, humming like a soft song. Amari ran her fingers across one of the carvings, her face turning serious for the first time. Long ago, our family made a deal, she whispered. A soul bond pact. Jake frowned. The same one I'm entering with you and your sisters? Amari nodded slowly. Yes, but you weren't supposed to. She led him to a small shrine hidden in the trees, where an ancient statue stood. It looked like an alien warrior, holding 4 glowing hearts in one hand and a chained star in the other. Amari knelt before it, her voice quieter now. If any one heart is left unloved, the bond will fail. Jake knelt beside her. What does that mean? Amari looked into his eyes. If you don't love all 4 of us equally, we die. The words hit Jake like a thunderstorm. His chest tightened. You mean, literally? She nodded. Our souls are connected, Jake. One string pulled too hard and it breaks us all. He sat back, struggling to breathe. I didn't know. Liari didn't tell me. Amari smiled sadly. She couldn't. The law forbids it until the trials are done. Jake stared at the shrine, the statue's glowing hearts pulsing slowly. So, if I say yes, I must carry all your lives with me. Yes, Amari whispered. And if you ever change your heart, we fade. They sat in silence for a while, the forest around them gently breathing with ancient life. Jake looked at Amari again, her playful energy now quiet and real. You act so carefree, he said. But this is heavy. She shrugged. Someone has to keep the light burning. He took her hand gently. Then I'll carry you all, every one of you. Amari blushed slightly. Even if we drive you mad? Jake laughed softly. Especially if... Suddenly the wind in the forest changed. Turning cold, Amari stood quickly, her eyes glowing brighter. They've found us, she said. The elders are watching. Dark shapes moved in the distance. Like shadows with no bodies, Amari pulled Jake close, her voice urgent now. I'm not supposed to be here with you. This part of the forest is forbidden. Jake nodded, gripping her hand. Then let's leave together. They ran through the forest, the glowing trees shifting as they moved. Strange voices followed them, speaking in a forgotten language. Jake could feel something pulling at his mind, like a string trying to snap. He kept his focus on Amari, who moved like wind and light, never stopping, never afraid. At last, they broke through the trees and returned to the outer edge of the palace. Guards were waiting, but Liari stood between them, her eyes fierce. Let them pass, she ordered, her voice like thunder. He is under protection. The guards stepped aside, and Jake and Amari fell into Liari's arms. Exhausted, Tirana and Velsha appeared moments later, both angry and worried. You went to the hidden grove? Velsha asked, shocked. Amari nodded. He had to know. Jake stood up straight, his voice strong. They all had the right to test me, but I have the right to know the truth. Tirana crossed, her arms. You are bold. Velsha looked at the sky. And now, the elders will respond. Thunder cracked across the heavens, and a beam of dark light struck the palace tower. The elders had arrived, and they were not pleased. Amari stepped beside Jake, gripping his arm. Whatever happens next, she said, don't let go of us. Jake took a deep breath and whispered, never. The tower of Elenthra shook as the dark beam of light faded into the clouds. Thunder rolled across the sky, and the air turned heavy and cold. From the highest spire of the palace, a giant crystal opened like a flower, revealing a circular platform. And there, floating above it, stood the elders of Elenthra. They were not like the sisters, not young or beautiful. They were ancient, tall, glowing beings with faces hidden by energy masks. Each one wore a long robe that seemed woven from time itself. Their voices echoed not with sound, but straight into the mind. The human has passed the trials, one elder said. But love is not enough, said another. We must test his purpose, whispered a third, its voice colder than the others. Jake stood below the tower with Liari and her sisters beside him. Tirana's hand rested on her sword. Ready to defend, Velsha closed her eyes, sensing the truth. Behind the elder's energy, Amari frowned, whispering, They're afraid. Liari stepped forward and raised her voice. He has passed all traditions, honored our laws, and touched each of our souls. One elder floated lower, its face glowing red. He is not Elenthran, not chosen by the stars, not of the ancient line, it hissed. Jake stepped forward, shoulders back, eyes steady. Then choose someone else, he said. But I won't leave them. The elders fell silent, their forms pulsing darker for a moment. Then the eldest among them spoke. Very well, human, it said. One final choice remains. A beam of light shot down from the sky, forming a perfect circle around Jake. Inside it, two visions appeared, one of Earth, peaceful and familiar, and one of Elenthra, glowing with future potential. "You may choose one," the elder boomed. "Return to Earth, forget these women, live freely, or stay on Elenthra forever, but never touch your home again." Jake stared at both images. Torn between worlds, Earth meant family, safety, and everything he had ever known. But Elenthra meant love, connection, and something bigger than himself. He turned slowly to look at Liari, who stared at him with quiet hope. Terena said nothing, but her knuckles turned white as she gripped her blade. Velsha kept her eyes on the ground, already preparing to mourn. Amari had tears in her glowing eyes, even though she tried to hide them with a smile. Jake took one deep breath and said, "Home is where your heart lives." He stepped into the light toward Elenthra. The Earth vision shattered like glass, and the circle of light vanished. The air changed instantly, the wind swirled, and the palace itself began to glow. The sisters lit up with bright energy, their bond fully sealed now, but the elders did not move. The youngest elder spoke with doubt in its voice. "He chooses passion over reason, love over duty." "We do not accept him," said another. Velsha raised her hand, her voice rising for the first time. "Then we no longer accept you." Gasps echoed through the palace. Even the guards froze. The sisters stood in front of Jake as one, forming a circle around him. Terena drew her sword, pointing it upward. "We will not follow old voices that cannot feel," she said. Amari stepped beside her. "He risked his life for us." Velsha joined them. "He faced his fears," and Liari walked to Jake, took his hand and whispered, "He gave up everything for us." The elders pulsed angrily, their forms growing darker. One lifted its hand, ready to strike, but the planet itself responded. The sky turned white, the ground trembled, and a beam of gold light burst from the twin moons. It struck the platform and surrounded the sisters and Jake in a warm glow. From the center of that light, a voice much older than the elders spoke. "Let the bond be honored," it said. "Let the old ways break. Let love write the new law." The elders screamed, and then one by one their forms began to dissolve, fading into the sky, all except one, the oldest elder, who lowered itself and removed its mask. Behind it was the face of a woman, ancient and kind, her eyes soft with memory. She looked at Jake and smiled. "Forgive us," she said. "We forgot how strong the heart can be." Then she vanished too, leaving behind peace, silence, and stars. Jake turned slowly, still holding Liari's hand. "Did that just happen?" he asked. Liari smiled, tears falling from her glowing eyes. "Yes," she said, "and it happened because of you." The people of Elenthra began to appear, stepping out from hiding. They bowed, not to the sisters, but to Jake. He had not only passed the trials, he had changed a world. Elenthra was quiet, too quiet, as if the entire planet was holding its breath. The stars above shined brighter than ever, and the twin moons now glowed with golden light. Jake stood in the center of the palace's ancient courtyard, surrounded by people. Alien eyes watched him with awe, not as an outsider, but as something new, something chosen. Beside him stood Liari, Terena, Velsha, and Amari, each dressed in ceremonial robes woven from moonlight and crystal thread. They no longer looked like princesses. They looked like destiny. Each sister's energy pulsed in harmony, tied now to Jake's presence. He could feel them, not just beside him, but inside his heartbeat, inside his breath, the grand arch of souls. A structure untouched for 1,000 years, opened for the first time. Its glowing gates welcomed them forward. Velsha whispered, This place is only opened for true soul bonds. Tirena nodded. And it accepts only one bond in an age. Amari looked at Jake with a grin. Ready to be stuck with 4 alien sisters forever? Jake smiled. You make it sound like a punishment. Liari reached out and took his hand. Then let this be our vow. They stepped through the arch, and instantly the world outside faded away. They entered a glowing realm where time slowed, and the sky rippled like water. In this place only truth could exist, only real hearts could speak. A glowing orb floated in front of them, the heart of Elenthra. It pulsed softly, alive and ancient, waiting for their words. Jake stepped forward, and for the first time spoke from his soul. I am not of your world, he said, his voice steady. I have no glowing blood, no royal bloodline, no wings or powers. But I have something stronger. I have love. He turned to Liari. For you, who gave me hope. To Tirena. For you, who challenged me to be brave. To Velsha. For you, who showed me truth. And to Amari. For you, who gave me laughter. I choose all of you. Not because I must, but because I want to. The orb glowed brighter, spinning faster. Liari stepped forward next. We accept this bond, she said, her voice calm and full of power. Not as duty, but as desire. Tirena followed. We will guard him with our lives, Velsha said. We will guide him with our minds. Amari finished. We will love him with our hearts. The orb exploded in light, wrapping around all 5 of them. Jake felt heat and cold at the same time. Like being born again, flashes of memories from all 4 sisters filled his mind. Pain, joy, childhood, loneliness, longing, laughter, fear, courage. They shared everything with him, and he gave everything back. The light faded, and they stood together, their hands locked. Above them, stars rearranged in the sky, forming the shape of a glowing circle, 4 stars surrounding one. The bond was complete. The union of stars had accepted the human. When they returned from the arch, the people bowed, deeply. A golden wind swept across the palace, touching each citizen gently. The bond had awakened Elenthra itself. One elder returned, just a voice now, soft and kind. A new age has begun, it said, and it is written in the hearts of 5. That night, the celebration began. Lights danced across the skies, and music filled the air. Jake sat beside the sisters, dressed now in a robe of deep blue stitched with constellations. Everywhere he walked, people greeted him, not as a stranger, but as bonded one. He didn't feel like a king, or a hero, or a god. He just felt loved. Liari leaned against him, her voice soft. Do you regret it? Jake shook his head. Not for a second. Tirena placed a crown made of star metal on his head as a joke. Now you look like one of us, she said. Amari tossed fruit at him, laughing. Now you eat like us too. Velsha simply smiled and said, Now you are one of us. Jake looked at all of them, his eyes full of peace. He wasn't dreaming. This was real. He didn't just change their lives. They had changed his soul. As the celebration continued, Jake stared up at the night sky. He could still remember Earth, still remember the boy he once was. But now, he was something more, something shared, bonded eternal, under the union of stars. 5 hearts beat as one. Many seasons passed since the union of stars. Elenthra was no longer the same. The skies were brighter, the moons danced closer, and the people, once divided by ancient rules, had changed. In the center of it all lived a human, once a stranger, now a symbol of unity, love, and hope. Jake sat on a balcony high above the glowing city. Below him, airships flew between towers of light. Alien children played in parks made of crystal and vines. He could hear laughter, music, and life. Everything felt alive now, like the planet had been asleep until love woke it up. Layari sat beside him, her long hair tied in a braid that sparkled. In the sunlight, she rested her head on his shoulder, her voice soft. "Do you remember the first time you asked me to marry you?" Jake smiled. "You mean when I thought it was just you, not all four of you?" She giggled. "Yes, that moment." Amari poked her head around the corner, hanging upside down from a balcony beam. "Best surprise ever, right?" she said with a wink. Jake laughed. "It nearly gave me a heart attack." Velsha walked in quietly, carrying books and scrolls, her eyes glowing with wisdom. She sat on the floor and looked at Jake. "You've brought balance to more than just us," she said. "Even the elders who remain now listen to the people." Terena entered last, her sword resting. Against her back, armor shining, she poured herself a cup of starfruit tea, sat on the edge of the table and said, "Your training still needs work, though." Jake groaned. "I thought today was rest day." Terena raised an eyebrow. "Rest after morning drills." The five of them laughed, their bond stronger than ever. They weren't just lovers or bondmates, they were family. They had faced trials, visions, secrets, and powerful beings, and through it all, Jake never let go of their hands. Outside the palace, a new school had opened. It taught Earth languages and Elenthran history side by side. Human children and alien children studied together. They learned about compassion, honor, and how love could shape worlds. Many visitors came from Earth, curious about the man who married 4 alien sisters. Some came to mock, some to understand, but all left changed because they saw something impossible. 4 powerful women who had chosen one human not for strength or status, but for heart. One day, a group of Earth diplomats arrived. They brought cameras, translators, and political advisors. They asked Jake, "Do you want to return home? We can take you back." Jake looked at Liari, at Velsha, at Terena, at Amari. He saw their smiles, their trust, their bond. He turned back to the diplomats and said, "I am home." The diplomats were confused, some upset. One even whispered, "He's been brainwashed." Jake chuckled and replied gently, "No, I've just been loved right." That night, the 5 stood at the top of the palace, looking up at the stars. Velsha pointed to a new constellation forming. "It's shaped like a heart," she whispered. "The galaxy remembers." Jake placed his arms around all of them, pulling them close. "I came to a world I didn't understand," he said, "but I found souls who understood me." Liari touched his chest, feeling the bond pulse beneath. His skin. "You gave us something no warrior or king ever could." She said, "You gave us a choice." Amari jumped onto his back playfully. "And now you're stuck with us forever," Jake laughed. "Best decision I ever made." Terena leaned on his shoulder. "You changed our world." Jake looked at her and whispered, "You changed mine first." As the night grew quiet, a soft wind passed over the land. The people of Elenthra looked up at the palace lights and smiled. They no longer feared the old laws or the stars above, because love had rewritten their future. And in the center of it all, a human lay curled beside 4 glowing sisters. Not a king, not a god, not a soldier. Just a man who believed in love strong enough to change a world, and to them, he would always be more than just a husband.